Some Batman stories roar like thunderclaps with explosions, memorable villains, and city-wide chaos. But then there are tales that speak to the human condition and say something meaningful that resonates with the audience. The new Batman Adventures episode, Growing Pains, is one of those whispers, a fragile, heartbreaking elegy. It doesn't rely on spectacle or grand schemes. Instead, it invites us into something quieter and more intimate. A young boy's first love, and the ghost of a monster trying to be human. And did you know that it was worked on by the staff at Studio Ghibli? More on that later on. To call it the best episode of the new Batman Adventures recognises that rare magic when storytelling transcends genre and becomes something almost sacred. It has things to say about identity, loss, and what it means to be alive. There are flashier episodes, funnier ones, and probably more famous ones. But few have the emotional clarity, philosophical depth, and sheer narrative confidence of Growing Pains, a story about Robin trying to save a lost little girl who cannot possibly be saved. If you've never seen Growing Pains before and are weary of spoilers, beware, because I'm going to talk about the events of the episode in depth. Although, to be fair, it has been almost 30 years since it aired, so if you haven't seen it, what exactly are you waiting for? Now, those that regularly watch my videos will know that I've never really been invested in Robin. He's not a bad character, I just don't care about him. Too often, he feels bolted on to Batman's plot, like the writers remembered him halfway through and scrambled to find something for him to do, especially in Batman the Animated Series. But in Growing Pains, Robin is the story's beating heart. His instincts, his compassion, and his heartbreak drive the narrative from start to finish. You couldn't cut him out and replace him with, say, Batgirl. The story in its current form just wouldn't work without him. The episode opens with an intense attempted assault on a young girl. She's wandering Gotham's alleys late at night when she's set upon by some bikers with bad intentions. Robin intervenes and saves her, but she bolts in terror, leaving him confused and oddly curious. While he only spent a few moments in her company, Robin can't stop thinking about her, and so he sets out to find her to see if she needs help. We later learn that she's an amnesiac with an overwhelming urge to keep running. Someone is after her. She doesn't know who, but she can feel their presence nearby, and it fills her with dread. So naturally, Robin is drawn to her. She's vulnerable, confused, and clearly being hunted. He sees a lot of himself in her. Remember, he was essentially living rough after his father went on the run from Two-Face, before Batman took him in. He knows what it's like to be young and alone. Since she can't remember her own name, Robin names her Annie after the doll, and promises to help. He does this out of kindness, sure, but there's also an attraction there, and she seems to feel the same way. What follows is a slow burn mystery that shifts into horror, and then tragedy. The twist in the episode is that Annie isn't what she appears to be. She's a fragment of Clayface that wandered off and became her own person. After his death in the beat-ass episode Mudslide, Clayface's remains were left drifting in the sea. However, something in the waste pipes of a coastal chemical plant revived him and enhanced his powers, allowing him to split off segments of himself and control them remotely. In his weakened state, he birthed Annie to scout the surrounding area, but she forgot her purpose, remembering only the need to explore. When she didn't return, Clayface pulled himself together and went looking for her. He never harms Annie directly, but he's furious that she won't return. She doesn't remember him, but deep down she knows she has to stay away if she wants to keep living. She's a part of him that didn't want to be a monster, a child born of trauma, rejecting her past and trying to break free. She embodies hope and innocence in stark contrast to Clayface's fear and rage, a fragile attempt to redefine what it means to be alive away from his monstrous existence. The thing that I really like about Annie is that she's such a rich metaphor that says different things to different people, depending on their life experience. Most obviously, she's an allegory for abused children fleeing an abusive parent. Clayface doesn't strike her, but he barks orders at her and demands obedience. Reabsorption means death, but from his perspective, she was never alive in the first place. She is him. That sense of danger and loss of autonomy also maps onto other forms of abuse. Emotional, psychological, and perhaps even sexual. When Clayface's hulking hands reach for her, it's hard not to feel the weight of that implication. Building on that theme of identity, there's also a glaring queer reading here, which I'll cover given that it's Pride Month at the time of uploading. Queer subtext has long been a component of Clayface stories, as I discussed in an older video about Clayface. I've linked to that video in the info card and description, so add that to your watch later list if the subject interests you. To expand on what I said previously, Clayface typically presents as male, though his fluid form challenges binary ideas of gender. Annie, a fragment of him, chooses a female form and identity. That in itself is meaningful. With that in mind, it's hard not to read Annie as a trans allegory, someone carving out a self, independent of a controlling parent who refuses to accept her identity. In the comments of my earlier video, trans viewers stated that they saw themselves in her. They recognised the anxiety, the longing for acceptance and the pain of erasure. Some dismissed that reading, claiming it was too modern for a 90s cartoon, as if trans people haven't always existed in some form or another. No, they argued that Annie represents Clayface's innocence and nothing more. But that's the beauty of art. It contains multitudes and says different things to different people. You may not see some interpretations, but that doesn't mean they're invalid. And to get back to Clayface for a moment, I often say he isn't Batman's best villain, but in the DCAU, he's easily the most interesting. Beyond the queer subtext and the grotesque body horror, I'm struck by the form he chooses in this episode. After his traumatic death, Clayface emerges afraid and vulnerable, so he adopts a hulking, scarred form with tree trunk arms and squared-off shoulders. He becomes something intimidating because he feels small and afraid. That same fear is present in Annie, but she resists it. She chooses to overcome it, even though it means her death. Subtext aside, what elevates Growing Pains is the philosophical question at its core. What does it mean to be alive? Is Annie a person or a deluded fragment of a monster? For Robin, the answer is clear. Annie feels pain, questions her existence, and makes choices. She is alive. Her despair upon learning her origins doesn't negate her identity. No, if anything, it proves it. Her doubts, her will, and her final act of self-sacrifice all point to one truth. Annie is real. Robin believes in her, he fights for her, and when he fails to save her, it shatters him. Her end is brutal. When Clayface consumes her, it's not like the Clay kids from Holiday Nights. It's not tidy. It's agony, and she screams, she thrashes, and just like that, she's gone, with no trace left behind. It's a premise fit for a grim adult thriller, not a 20-odd minute cartoon for kids, and yet it's executed with such grace. Credit goes to the writers Paul Dini and Bob Goodman. Dini originally envisaged a BTAS-era Dick Grayson falling for a mysterious girl who would turn out to be Clayface. Goodman retooled it into something sadder for TNBA that was perfect for Tim Drake. Tim is young and idealistic. At the start of the episode, it's clear that he has faith in his abilities as a hero. He confidently deals with those bikers and dedicates himself to finding and saving Annie. And when he does find her and gets her to talk to him, he's proud and feels accomplished. This is his first experience of romantic love. And through Annie, we watch that idealism get chipped away until he's left raging at the monster who took her from him. The emotion lands thanks to the art too. One thing that sets the new Batman adventures apart from BTAS is the way the episodes were made. In the early days, Warner Brothers handled a lot of the work in-house, only farming out the actual animation cell painting to foreign studios. By the time of TNBA, they had moved production of entire episodes to the studios themselves, and Growing Pains is one of those episodes, assigned to Tokyo Movie Shinsha, a studio in Japan. However, TMS had bitten off more than they could chew, and so they outsourced the majority of the work to another studio they had a great working relationship with, Studio Ghibli. Yes, that Studio Ghibli. And once you know it, you can't unsee it. The fluid animation, the soft expressive eyes, the lingering silences, and just look at their Batman with his hook nose and mean scowl. And Annie, she feels like she wandered out of a Miyazaki film. And hey, maybe she did. For more on that, check out Steve M's excellent video about Ghibli's work on this episode, as well as the 3-part Superman and Batman crossover World's Finest. I've linked it in the info button in the top right corner. Just finish watching this video first, yeah? Beyond all the animation and analysis, what cements Growing Pains as the greatest episode of the new Batman adventures is the overall message, which can be neatly summed up by the episode's conclusion. In the final scene, as Batman and Robin watch Clayface being taken away, Batman places a hand on Tim's shoulder and says, "Sometimes there are no happy endings." Robin nods his head in silent acknowledgement. As the police list the charges, robbery, breaking and entering, anything else? Robin responds, "Yes." murder. That is what elevates Growing Pains from great to unforgettable. It doesn't end in justice or triumph, it ends in grief. Robin tried his hardest, but he couldn't save Annie. Some might argue that there was no one to save, but Annie had feelings and made decisions. If she were just a puppet, she would have fled as instructed. Instead, she came back and gave her life for her only friend. Annie may not have had a pulse, but she was alive in every way that mattered. For a brief moment, she made Tim believe that something good can grow from something broken, that maybe, just maybe, not everything in Gotham is doomed to fall apart. And then it all came crashing down in the most grotesque way possible. And a little piece of Robin died too. Robin was already more well versed in loss than a child of his age should be. His father had fled town and was killed by Two-Face. But this time was different. He never saw his father die. He was just gone one day and was never seen again. Here, Annie was ripped away from him as he stood powerless to do anything about it. Growing Pains doesn't just give Tim a tragic love story, it gives him an encounter with loss that can't be punched, solved or swung away from, and it's one that he'll never forget. Tim Drake's first love was a fragile spark of hope, born from something monstrous. Annie was never meant to survive, yet in her brief existence she was unmistakably alive, filled with fear, choice and courage. When Batman tells Tim that sometimes there are no happy endings, it's not just a line, it's a hard truth. Growing Pains whispers that not every story has a hero who wins or a villain who pays. Sometimes all that remains is the hollow ache of what might have been. And maybe that's the episode's real power, reminding us that growing up means carrying grief that can't be fought or outrun, just lived through. It's the cruel lesson that sometimes to be human is to lose what you love most and keep moving forward anyway. For all its quiet heartbreak, Growing Pains blossoms into one of the most profound tales Batman's world has ever offered. And it's a story that sticks with you long after the screen fades to black. Okay, that's it for this week's essay. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really enjoyed the video and have the means, please consider making use of the thanks button to send $1 or $2 my way, because every little helps. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month. This will get you early access to my weekly video essay, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, custom emojis, and an icon on your profile indicating that you're one of my people. And special thanks to my channel members. Everyone who was a member at the time of this video's creation is listed on the screen right now. If you want to see your name amongst all these wonderful people, join the channel now. Next time, I'll be back on Friday to talk about the sad story of a beloved Silver Age of Comics figure who's about to be brought into the spotlight in James Gunn's Superman film. How's that for a bit of synergy? Yes, it's time to uncover the forgotten story of the DC Animated Universe's version of Krypto, the Superdog. And next Monday I'm going back to my latest The Batman villain poll to talk about the character that came in third place. Yes, it's time to talk about their controversial take on the cult-themed criminal, Mr. Freeze. Hope to see you then.